Right, okay, so this dream is basically a follow-on from the one I think I called Inside Job. I think I called it Inside Job, but it's the last video I filmed. I may kind of put these together, but they're going to be side by side anyway. But they're very connected, very, very connected with these ones. Now, I've spent quite a bit of time actually doing prep work and stuff on this one because there's a lot to this dream. There really is a lot to this dream. So this may be quite a long video because I'm going to be going through quite a few different scriptures and so on. So this one actually was one that I'd already written all of my dreams into the dream journal, and then this one came afterwards. And this was one I was sort of debating whether to film or put it in the next series. But after going through my last video, I felt that these were just too connected. So obviously I'm filming it, clearly. So this dream as well, as far as the order, it was kind of a little bit of a back to front dream as to the way it kind of happened. And you often do find that with some dreams where you'll see the end before it, and then it kind of goes backwards. I mean, you see that with films, don't you? So it was a little bit like that. So now I'll start this way. So I remember being in a complex of some sign. So this was like a complex of some sort or some kind. I was basically in like a big building. I don't know how many floors it was, but it was very wide and had multiple stories to it. But I remember being in this complex, and there was certainly a bit where there was a cinema. In that there was, I'll go into this in a moment. But yeah, I came out of the lift, and in front of me there was just a sort of an open area where from there you decide where you want to go next. You know, what are you exploring on this floor, that kind of thing. So there's kind of like a long hallways across, you know, around the whole floor, and then there was other rooms, I guess. And there was one bit that was kind of just off at an angle from me. So if I came out the lift and then walked along a little bit, then I saw there was just a small staircase going up, and along there was movie posters. There we go. So I'm more or less just about to jump into this. Movie posters, you know, you just across that wall as it's going up this one more floor to what is a cinema. Okay, so yeah, put here, I think it was a cinema or something. I don't think the whole building was a cinema though necessarily, because there was other stuff to it, but it was just that there was a cinema within this building. I think that's what it was more the case. But in this dream, I was trying to get to a higher level. I was always trying to get higher to these upper levels. And I thought I'd cracked it because if I'd been looking, you see, to get up higher, and I thought, I found a way to get up, but it was just this one sort of small, almost like half floor, I guess, that sort of went up to this cinema bit. But I thought I'd found a staircase that I could use to get up, but it wasn't the case really. It was just going up to another part within that same sort of floor. But yeah, I'll go back a little step here. So anyway, it all started where I was getting in a lift. So if you imagine I'm in the lobby sort of area, and I'm standing waiting for a lift at the ground floor to get to some of these upper floors. Well, it was just me and this woman who were waiting for this lift, elevator, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to refer to it as a lift. Otherwise, I'm going to keep doing that all the time. So the lift arrived on our floor. So we got the ding sort of thing, you know, doors open. And I could tell that the woman who was with me, I say with me, she wasn't. She was very much separate from me. She was nothing to do with me at all, but she just happened to be waiting for for this lift at the same time. I could tell was very nervous. You know, she was kind of like quite closed in, and she was nervous about me, which I thought was a bit strange. Yeah, she felt very uncomfortable in getting in this lift with just me. Okay, that's what I sort of got from this. And we were just kind of at this stalemate, I suppose, where she was kind of looking at me, wondering if I was going to get in the lift, and I was kind of looking at her, waiting for her to get into the lift. You know, I suppose was kind of how that was going. But she was just kind of nervous, didn't want to make the first move, even though these doors have now opened. We're both kind of like looking at each other, like, are you going to get in the lift? You know, I would feel a bit bad in jumping in first, you see, and I was just letting her her going first. But yeah, obviously she felt a bit nervous about it. So yeah, but okay, yeah, and then just as we've got this nervous moment let's say, where there's just this stalemate and no one's doing anything. Then another lift comes down and they hear the ding, and then I think, brilliant, okay, well we can go in separate lifts. This isn't a problem now. And so she got in the lift, and then I got in the other lift as well. And as I got in, I obviously hit the button for where I was going, the floor. I didn't see the number or anything like that, but I hit the button to go up. But then just as those doors were closing, somebody slips in through the door. And they slip in through the door, and that door then closes behind them. Okay. And the person who slipped in was was a young white guy with short blonde hair. Okay. So I'm not sure if it was like really short, but pretty short, let's say, blonde hair, white guy. And it's at this point I realized that these lifts were actually really small. So then I kind of understood why that woman might be a little bit nervous, because it really only had enough room for 2 people, realistically. It was a very small lift. And so I thought, oh, I get it. She probably doesn't want to be in there with a guy who she doesn't know. She's a little bit nervous. I thought, okay, I kind of understand now a bit more as to why she was a little bit cautious, and with a lift sort of thing. Anyway, so as the doors shut behind this guy, he's facing me. So if you imagine, again, a small lift, very, very small lift. So my back is against the back of the back of this lift. He comes in and he's pretty much on top of me. And as the door closes, then he sort of lunges at me with this yellow liquid in a syringe. As soon as I saw this syringe come out, I'm kind of trying to wrestle with this guy to stop him obviously putting this needle in me. Yeah, okay. So in this wrestle, I think I ended up like somehow snapping off the needle part or something like that, or it took it down to a very low point in this kind of scuffle that was going on. And then I managed to get this off of him, and I was just trying to sort of stab him in sort of self-defense. Yeah. Okay, so I'll just describe him coming. Yeah, so again, when he came into that lift, so what he was wearing on his back was this really massive bag. That was a bag almost as big as him. So it was a really long bag, like let's say it goes down to the back of his knees, let's say, all the way up to head height, easily that sort of size. Very, very big bag. And that's what made it even more squashed, you see, because he's got to come in, with his bag, he's pressing up against me, and I'm kind of like, whoa, haven't got much space here at all. But yeah, came in wearing this bag. Yeah, there you go. I wrote, almost to the point where it's as long as him. And getting into the lift with this bag, took up a lot of extra room and squashed us in. But I was very aware that there was there was a sniper rifle in that bag. So that's why it was so long. I mean, obviously you can get a sniper rifle that you can deconstruct down into parts, can't you, and then put them all together. Not that I know anything about guns, really, but obviously seeing from films and stuff like that. So yeah, it did look like a bigger bag than really he needed, in all honesty. But again, I was just very aware that he had a sniper rifle in there, okay, in this bag. So this might explain, obviously, why this guy decided he wanted to take me out. I don't know whether I was a witness or something. Not really sure. And I think it might have been this moment where, yeah. There was another bit, so I'm not quite sure how this bit quite worked, because it was people were kind of in a lobby-like area or whatever it was, who actually spoke to us while we were in the lift. We didn't actually get out the lift, but they spoke to us. It was almost like the doors opened and then somebody sort of peered in, saw us in the lift, commented, and then we carried on up. I think that's how it happened, because it wasn't at the very lobby sort of bit at the bottom, I don't think, because I don't think there was any kind of conversation, and that will make sense in a moment. Okay, so I'm pretty sure that it must have been the case that we came up to the floor that we were both wanting to get off at, or it just, where somebody hits a button and then they've managed to get in another lift and the door's just open and you're kind of like, is anybody getting on here? No. And then the doors close again. I'm not sure if it was a little bit like that. Again, I'm not 100% sure actually. But again, the main thing is the comment sort of thing. So where are we? Yeah, there we go. So I put, this might have been the moment where the doors opened on a floor and someone at a sort of reception sort of area, let's say, commented on this massive bag that this guy had. And I ended up kind of covering for him. So this is why it makes me think that he tried to stab me and stuff like that. And so I'm thinking, well, this guy's, don't mess with this guy, I guess. I'm sort of covering for him. So I'm saying how it's a bow case, like an archery sort of bow case or something like that. I used to have one. I used to be an archer. So I know what they're like, and they are massive. The cases are massive. I mean, normally what you do is you hold it, and then the bow is kind of lengthways. So if you imagine like a bow like that, and it's the handle in the middle and you're holding it down by your side. So you don't put it on your back. Can't say when I was an archer I ever saw anybody carry it in that way. It was always within a big bag like that, because with bows you're not deconstructing them and then putting them back together to do your stuff. They're already, they've already got the bow string on there. They're strung. They're ready to go. I actually used to be a compound bow archer. So that's more of like a hunting bow really, where they've got cams at the top and front. The top and the bottom. So it's got a lot of pull weight, so you've got a lot of power. But then once those kind of, if you imagine those sort of round circles roll over the edges, it kind of holds the weight a bit, so that you can just hold it there for quite a while. Because obviously you're hunting, you're waiting for the perfect shot. Not that I was ever a hunter or anything like that, but they came out of America. I believe that's where they came from, compound bows used for hunting. And they used them in the military as well, as a silent sort of weapon. I think they still use them, bows, but I mean, not that you see them in any films, but I've heard that they still do use them to some extent in the military. Yeah. So I've sort of covered for him and said no. They've commented on his bag, and I've said how it's an archery bag. He's got a bow in there, that kind of thing. And it actually was like a talking point for the reception women. There's these few, like a couple of women sitting on reception that were really, really talkative, and they were sort of like, oh wow, that's interesting, which is kind of the comment you get when you tell people, yeah, I used to do archery. And they're like, not many people, I don't know anybody who's done that. It's kind of a talking point. It used to be on my CV. I don't know if it's still on there actually, on my CV for like job interviews and stuff. It's just a little bit of a talking point really, doing sort of competition archery and stuff like that. Anyway, so that's all really they said, and then we carried on. So as I said, I think it was a case of it was just opened up on the floor, and we kind of, we have these kind of comments, let's say, with reception. It was clear that I needed obviously to call the police, because I was just very aware, as I said, this guy's got a sniper rifle in his bag, and what purpose has he got in being in here with a sniper rifle? So I was very aware I needed to call the police or security, but I was also concerned about putting myself in danger again and raising the alarm, which is why I've kind of covered for this guy at this point. I sort of said, oh, it's just an archery, but it's just an archery bow. Anyway, I bumped into lots of people when exiting the lift. So when we get to our destination, the door opens and there's quite a few people, but they're people I'm due to meet. So I'm meeting people in this building, and we were having some sort of planned get together. So I'm not sure who these people were, because there was no friends, let's say, no faces I recognised I don't think so actually in this dream at all. So I've come out, and these people are people that we've planned some sort of a social interaction of some kind. I put a get together of some kind, and I remember in a later part, there was a part, a bit of a random part actually, where it showed me, and I was in a room of some kind, and I was like pulling out a big drawer, and there was loads of ties in there, and I was looking for a good tie to wear. And I remember, I was just choosing from all these different ties and saw a black one in there and decided against it. I didn't want the black tie. I knew it wasn't, and this is what I was trying to think, because I was trying to think of the occasion, let's say, that I was dressing for. And I know it wasn't a wedding, again, and that will sort of somewhat make sense when I go a bit further down the line where I talk about the room we went into. I don't think it was a wedding, but I felt like black was inappropriate. So it wasn't a funeral. It was something else we were going to. And I was kind of thinking, well, what's going to go with this? And I was just wearing, so it was smart casual, given that I was wearing jeans and I was putting on a shirt, but I also wanted to put a tie on. So bit of a strange combo. I don't think I've worn a shirt with a tie and jeans before, but I'm looking, for some reason, I'm looking at potentially combining a blue tie, maybe because I've got blue jeans and stuff. I'm just looking at all these different ties, just trying to think what's the best match. But it felt like I was also somewhat kind of killing time and using this time as an opportunity. So yeah, I put, it's like I was intentionally just delaying. It was a delaying tactic of some kind in this room, really, to create a time frame for me to use to call the police. A little bit like there's a hostage situation. Look, I need to go to the toilet. I need to go to the toilet. I need to go to the bathroom, that kind of thing. But really, you're going to the bathroom so you can escape out the window, or quickly call the police, or I don't know. In passing, hopefully you bump into somebody and say, "Quick, call the police! Call the police!" It was that kind of thing. I felt like maybe I was trying to create scenarios in which I had some time to call police, tell them what's going on, and get somebody down here. That's what it felt like, potentially. But again, it wasn't 100% clear. I was just very aware that there was a plot for somebody to be killed here, and that's what this sniper rifle was for. There's something going on. As I said, the guy with the syringe was trying to silence me. Whether that's knock me out or kill me, I mean, it was a yellow liquid in this syringe, so it just makes me think of a poison, to be honest. And more likely to be trying to take me out, sort of thing. Seemed a bit weird though. I mean, this guy just lunged at me in this lift. Anyway, so in this dream I kept looking for staircases and a way to go up to this upper level, which was never actually explained. So there was just this motivation throughout this dream of I need to get higher, and I don't know why. It was like I need to get to the roof, or I just need to get to an upper level, and I'm not sure what that motivation was, because it was, as I said, it was never explained. Actually, there was never a full understanding. Just this absolute motivation, just to get up, find stairs, get higher, is basically what it was. And as I said, oh, there we go. So I go back to someone I've already explained. So, and thought I'd actually found this staircase after searching, but this was the cinema area, in which it was just an internal staircase. It wasn't somewhere that was going to actually allow me to get to another level. It was more stairs within this level. Is kind of what it felt like. What did I have here? But rather than that, I was looking to find a staircase that was actually going to allow me to go to upper levels. And I remember, as I said, when I came out of that lift, do you remember I mentioned I was looking down left to right, and I could see there was quite long distances actually to what was effectively the edge of the building, either side of the edge of the building. And I was thinking, well, that's probably where you're going to find staircases. Maybe would be on the outside wall, possibly, that would take me up there. So that's where I was looking to maybe go and use the outside wall aspect. Okay. And I thought maybe me going upstairs or something like that was maybe me looking for someone to warn people. I don't know. I put there were several of us that had been coerced by these guys. So I put here these guys. This wasn't just one guy. Obviously, at this point, I've only had this interaction with this one guy in the lift, but there are others. Okay, and others within our group had been coerced, blackmailed in some way, let's say, to do something, to comply, something like that. Yeah. So like I'm kind of pretending somewhat, they're pretending also that these guys who were part of our friend group, let's say, this group of people in this get together that I talked about, that they're, oh, this is blah blah blah. You remember him from there, wherever, and then kind of people are like, yeah, trying to incorporate them into our group. They're with us, kind of thing. Okay, so there's that kind of element to what's going on. It kind of almost reminds me a bit like a bank robbery, where someone's come to your house, let's say, and at night time, and then they've broken in and they've said, right, we're going. When does the bank open? Oh, it opens at 6 o'clock in the morning, right? And you're going to disarm the alarm. You're going to get me in, and you're going to tell people that I'm just here from another branch, of the bank, or I'm just a family member, or something like that, some sort of cover story. So again, something somewhat similar to that does happen a bit further on. But it was like that. It was like that. There was like this creation of some sort of a backstory, I guess, as to who these guys were. Anyway, blah blah blah, coerced. Yeah. As I said, they'd somehow infiltrated our group. Okay, infiltrated our group simply because we feared for our lives. They'd obviously threatened us, and so this, and they'd got to us earlier, which I'm going to go to in a moment. So they'd got to us earlier, and they'd coerced us, and now we were at the place that they had briefed us as to what we were going to do. This is where we're going to go, like the whole bank robbery thing. Now we've got to the point where we're at that bank robbery sort of scenario, and I've told you what's going to happen if you don't comply, and everyone's on board now. Everyone knows what their role is, that kind of thing. Okay, so think of it a bit like that. Okay, so infiltrated our group because obviously we feared for our lives, and as mentioned earlier, when I mentioned meeting up with others regarding this event in this sort of lobby area outside the lift, we were continuing to arrange and finalize plans for this event, some sort of event that we're all there for. Okay, and this is the event that these infiltrators had joined our group for this, whatever this was. Okay, while people were sort of talking, I would try, if as a group were kind of chatting amongst themselves, I was trying to find a little bit of a way to sort of slip away from the group. So I could warn security, again, call the police, something like that, to let them know that, look, we're being held under duress here. These guys they've got, one of them's got a sniper rifle. We believe that they're going to kill somebody. We need you to come here now, and sort out this situation. Very much what it felt like. Okay. Okay, so here we go. So I'm going into another part of the dream now. So I remember a part of the dream where we were actually at a home environment for some other type of event. So this could have been something like a birthday or a barbecue, some sort of a gathering of people, and it was the same set of people. Okay, and this is where we were introduced to these strangers, these people that were part of this plot. Okay, so all these guys that are kind of manipulating us, we actually met them a lot earlier in a different social setting, and as I said, that's where the coercion started. Okay, as I mentioned, these are all young white men. I would have said around 20-ish. I put in brackets here, very late teens to early 20s, so quite a tight sort of age range, I would have said. And they basically just invited themselves to this social event that was at this house. Kind of crashed it, this earlier event. Weren't invited, and though this previous event had become oh right, okay, so they'd used this event to get involved in this future thing that we're at right now, and they were involved in somehow in the planning and stuff like that. So they were manipulating the kind of, this is how this event's going to go, because we're inserting ourselves in key roles within the planning of this event that they've infiltrated. Okay, Where's it gone? Event planning. Yeah, in this. Yeah, okay. And I did have this, where I had this bit I mentioned where I was trying to find a tie and I was trying to slip away and I was trying to notify the police and stuff like that. There's a very similar thing that happened actually at that house where, again, something very similar happened where I went off and I was moving from room to room. I was trying to find a good place to sort of hide so that I could, out of view of everybody, call the police, get somebody there to say, look, we've got some guys here, they're threatening us, we've got some unwanted guests, calling the police, getting them out. Yeah, that kind of thing. I'll very quickly mention this. So this is just a sort of anecdotal sort of thing that did actually happen once. So obviously not quite like this, but we did have a house party once when I was about 15, 16, 17, something like that. Don't know exactly what the age was, but quite youngish. And we had a house party and music was loud, like doors were open, people could hear the music, that kind of thing. And we actually had some sort of neighbour, so somebody in the area or somebody passing by heard the loud music, knocked on the door. I don't know who opened the door, but these guys just came into this party that we had. And again, we're early, well, not early teens, mid-teens to late teens ourselves. And these guys were, I don't know what age they were, but they were quite a few years older than us. So they were probably, let's say, I don't know, early 20s or something like that, I would guess. And we're sort of 15, 16. Yeah, around that sort of age. And they came in and they were like super sleazy, like, staring at the girls and stuff. I'm like, you do realize I'm like 15, 16, and how old are you guys, And it was just incredibly uncomfortable. And we just didn't know, we were sort of like saying to the host, like, what are we going to do to get rid of these guys? It did kind of take me back and reminded me of that awkwardness at that event. It was just a house party, but it was that awkwardness and thinking, how are we going to get rid of these guys? Look, there's quite a few of them. Obviously, there's quite a few of us as well, but these guys are in their 20s and we're like 15, 16. Like, we felt very sort of pressured. I can't remember how it all ended as to how they left. I think eventually, maybe some of the girls or some of the other guys sort of said, look, can you just leave? Look, you're not invited. I don't know why anybody let them in or whether they pushed their way in, because I wasn't there. I think I was in the lounge or something and they came in, or I was in the garden or something and they came in, and it was kind of like, who are these guys? Anyway, in this home environment then, so back to the dream, I found my daughter's bedroom. So the house must have been ours, and what I was checking for, as I said, in the room was, I was checking around, I was looking around, I was opening doors, I was looking under the bed, I was all of this to make sure that this room was completely empty, because what I was going to do was I was going to call for help, and I wanted to make sure I wasn't going to be overheard. But what I was really concerned about was, but what if they check my phone, and they've seen, oh look, 999, or obviously in America 911 has been dialed, and they're going to know I've called the police. So I kind of thought, I won't do that, just in case. And yeah, in this prior searching of these rooms, and this I think this isn't a pointless aspect I'm going to go through here. So in going through these rooms, I opened one of the doors to one of the bedrooms in this house, which, as I said, seemed to be mine, because I remember that room that I just mentioned going into was very girly looking, and I had this impression it was my daughter's room, and I was just looking for somewhere to sort of, again, make this call. Quite a small little bedroom, so it was kind of like very, very limited on where somebody could hide anyway. But I was just aware, because there's so many people at this birthday, this event, whatever this event was, that I needed to make sure there was no one in there. Anyway, in that search prior, you see, I'd actually opened a door, and it was all kind of dark in this room, but I saw these two guys who we didn't know, who were these uninvited guests, let's say, that were being intimate together. These two men. Now, it wasn't anything explicit, but it was just a knowing of the two of them were in an intimate situation between the two of them. Okay, as I said, nothing graphic. I was just very aware that they were together. Okay, in that kind of way, some sort of that kind of a partnership, let's say. Again, that will make sense in a minute. Okay, back to the planning part in the actual event now. So we're going again. I'm going back from this, away from this now, home environment into a different environment, I believe. Right. So yeah, back to the planning part of the actual event. I remember. Yes. Okay. So you know where I said that there's that cinema bit where I'd come out the lift, cinema bit, and there was there was like a hallway that serviced other rooms within this floor. A bit further down this room, and there was kind of like meeting rooms, I guess is what you would call them, and there was a very very large, quite a large meeting room in there. Not massive, I suppose, just kind of like a conference room, I guess. Nothing on a huge scale, but I remember going to that that kind of meeting place, and that was the meeting place that we were going to use. Okay, so this is the event now. We're at the event, which is on this floor. This is why we're all gathering around, and now we're going to go to this event. But at this point, all that was there was, like chairs were sort of all kind of out. You had sort of like a podium bit. So if you imagine like opening the doors, and as you look in, you see to the left is a kind of an area with some sort of a podium or some sort of slightly raised stage or something like that you clearly are going to have the speaker at, and then again slightly off again and in view, then just rows of chairs. Okay, just rows of chairs that go back. But it wasn't a very big room. I mean, I mentioned later, probably only housed about 50 people. So it wasn't a very big room, really. But I remember as part of this preparation, what had been arranged was a seating plan. And one of these kind of strangers, these infiltrators, let's say, had put themselves in the position where they were organising who was going to sit where. They were in charge of that kind of aspect. When it should have been us, obviously. We were the ones who were arranging this event, but this arranging aspect had been taken away from us by these infiltrators. Okay, and they were making sure that the first four seats were for them. So there was 4 of these guys at least that were going to be in this. What's it called? In this seating arrangement within this venue, and they were on the front row. Okay, so they had 4 seats in front of them, and so they had the absolute best position, front row seats. Okay, it was clear that would allow them, if they're, again, I'm aware that they're going to be, as far as I'm concerned, they're there to shoot whoever it is who's going on stage. Okay, that's what I'm imagining. And this guy's got a sniper rifle. At least one of them does, anyway. The one who was in the elevator, the lift with me. And what I found interesting was the seats. So I actually saw all the seats, but I also saw a seating plan that was kind of like on a piece of paper that was, I think, like framed or something on the outside of the wall or something like that. I'd seen the seating plan. I can't remember exactly how I saw it, but 100% saw it as I was standing there looking in. And as I said, I saw these 4 seats, but there's only maybe another one seat or something on that row. Then you've got the central bit that you walk down, and then there was another set of 5 seats. So let's say 10 seats by about 5 or 6 rows, something like that. Okay. And the seats that they were sitting on were specifically red seats. Okay. For their row was red seats. And then each row behind had different colours. I remember seeing, I've put here such as examples like blue, green. I don't know whether there was anything else. I only wrote down blue and green actually when I came out of the dream. I wrote red, which was the key one, which was their row, and then there was blue, green, something like that. Okay, so again, I suppose a little bit like if you were to go to a football game or a pop concert or something like that, and they'll say you're in the red seats, which are A15, something like that. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, and you can see it on the plan as to the different sections within a stadium. It kind of reminded me of that to a certain extent. So the dream covered. Oh, right, okay. So I've put here, yeah. So the dream basically covered all stages of planning. So we've obviously got them inserting themselves into our lives at this kind of party, this sort of event where we're at the home, then taking control and basically taking the kind of jobs that we were supposed to be doing. They were taking them. They were taking control of the event from within. So it was like it was an inside job sort of thing. So this is why I wanted to link this with the one I called Inside Job, because of this infiltrating aspect, where it was the police force that were being infiltrated. And in this one, it was our group was being infiltrated. Very, very similar kind of aspect to it. And that also had sort of like a serial killer, didn't it, in that one? And this one was obviously somebody who was looking to kill people as well. So again, very similar elements to it. In this dream, I never found out who the target was, but I was very aware of those who would do it as these young white guys. Yeah. I felt, as far as the political spectrum, that say they were more left-leaning, I would say. Not that I want to get all political on it, but I just had a feeling that they were more that sort of side. I felt like there were more to that kind of aspect, and they felt that what they were doing was they were doing it for like the greater good. Let's say they're taking somebody out that is going to benefit for everybody, so they're just the ones brave enough to do it. Okay, that's what it kind of felt like. They were a small group as well, quite a small group. I wasn't aware that they were attached to any much bigger groups. Let's say they were just like these kind of radicals, I suppose, that had these kind of views that they wanted to act upon and do the world a favor, take this person out, sort of thing. Okay, that's what it felt like for sure. What I put here? I felt as they talked about it, that they were planning to. What they're planning to carry out, was for the greater good. It was the right thing to do. They were very comfortable actually with talking about it to us, as they were keeping pretty close tabs on us all the time, and they were trying to be very friendly. So, as I said, they started off quite aggressive, but then they were trying, I guess, sort of passive aggressive sort of tactic of, I don't know. It was kind of like, look, you know what we're going to do to you if you don't comply. So let's just all get along, shall we? That kind of thing. A bit like somebody, who sort of like carjacks you or something like that and takes you on a really long journey. You're going to take me here, at gunpoint or whatever, but eventually the gun goes away and it's, tell me a bit about your life. So, what are you doing? What plans have you got for the future? Just making small talk, that kind of stuff. It was all that sort of stuff where we'd got quite friendly, I guess, so that we could just, kind of subdue this aggressive aspect, and that we were going to comply, is what it felt like. Okay. So, from seeing the seating plan, I could see, there we go, that it wasn't a very big event, as I mentioned, about 50 people. And this is because obviously I saw the 4 seats that they took up, and then from there I could kind of judge more so the size of the event, given that there was, as I said, roughly 10 seats per row and about 5 or 6 rows deep. And there I put some sort of presentation podium or slightly raised, very, very low raised stage or something like that, of this meeting room, just off the hallway of the cinema. There was no screen or anything in there, so it wasn't like it was a cinema screen and it was somehow connected to cinema. It wasn't. It was a separate room that was used for meetings, I guess. I saw the prep work, but not the person going on stage, as I mentioned. So I've seen all the prep, making sure everything's all ready for the venue, everything's good. We're waiting for other people of this event to arrive, but we're the planners. Okay, we're the ones that are setting the stage. Let's say, get everything all sort of ready. Everything's getting ready. Where we go, prep work. Yep. The constant theme was obviously me trying to warn people that this was going on, this was going to happen, unsuccessfully due to availability, really, of being able to call somebody up, but also being worried about myself and my own safety. Okay, and that's how it ended. So it really ended, I believe, with me seeing the seating plan. And that's just kind of where it ended, where I saw these red seats, the rows behind, and it was like, this is where it's going to be. Everything's ready to go. We're waiting for the guests to arrive, and then whatever's going to happen is going to happen. All of these other guys that are here for this assassination, I guess, are getting themselves sorted in different areas. But yeah, that's basically how that kind of finished. Now I'm going to go through transparency very, very quickly. Was there anything that would in any way affect this dream? Well, I was watching a TV series called The 100. I've mentioned this in a previous video about a dream. There was let's say a homosexual scene between two women. In that, at the time, there was also a bit where there was like a kind of like a valley, and then there was obviously the two raised areas. There was some people coming through this valley, and there was snipers up ready to shoot down. So again, that's very similar if you think to obviously the snipers in this sniper rifle anyway. So maybe that was similar. I think what happened in that was those people who had them at gunpoint were sort of like saying, look, we can kill you all now, or you can work with us. So the two groups in that program came together. Okay, just going to pause for 1 second. Sorry, I had an unavoidable cough there. I've put the radiators on and the air is so dry. But rather than you having a massive cough on the microphone, I'd quickly pause it. Anyway, moving on. So what were my thoughts about the dream? Now, I'm going to take us in all sorts of directions here. I think I know what it's talking about, but I'm going to take you on my thought process as well. And I think there's elements of it that could be correct. So, thoughts. Well, firstly, what I would say is it reminded me, well, there was a cinema in it. There was a cinema, wasn't there? I mentioned several times there was a cinema. I've had quite a few dreams now, even to the point where I'm considering doing a cinema series, putting together all the dreams that relate to cinema, because there's quite a lot. And it's sometimes only when you do a word search, or I've done a word search on all of my notes around my dreams, that I've noticed, hang on a minute, cinema's coming up quite a bit, or stage is coming up quite a bit. So I may well try and find those and cite some of the cinema related ones, because there was a few different ones. There's one that related to the rapture, I think. Well, I know actually it was related to the rapture. It was where Jesus was about to come on stage. I've had the opposite, where we had the temple. There's a temple one where there's kind of like the Antichrist sort of character comes on stage within a temple environment. So we've seen that as well. And I've seen other things which are like, I've got the curtain call series. So that does talk about obviously related stuff to cinemas as well. There's quite a few. So it does make me think what's that to do with. I think it's maybe to do with the stage being set. The stage is being set for an event that is about to happen. And could this be talking about that there are people in the background at the moment that are coercing people or something like that in getting everything in place for an event that is about to happen, as in real life, right now? Is the stage being set for some big event to happen? Okay, I do wonder. So that's just one of the thoughts. Maybe it's some sort of a warning. Obviously, if you think of it that way, let's say there's other people being coerced and they don't want to, they don't want to be unalived, let's say. So they go along with the plans. They're worried about the repercussions of if they don't go along with the plans. So they do it anyway. They go along with it. Constantly wanting to get higher. So I had this real motivation to keep on wanting to get higher. And was this to do with me wanting to get to heaven? Again, there's other elements that feel kind of like they have some, I would have said, some sort of a rapture-like symbology. So you've got me wanting to get higher all the time. So let's say that's me like wanting to escape Earth and get to heaven. You've got that kind of aspect. You've also got the lift, haven't you? You've got the lift where I'm, again, going from ground to higher. I actually did look this up. This is the one I did actually bookmark in this dream book. I think it was lift. Oddly, it wasn't under elevator. It is written by, I think they're Australian. I'm not sure actually. Maybe they're not. Yeah, this dream book. I'm just going to let you know what lift means, elevator in brackets, in this dream book. So it says, number one, it could mean, if you have a lift in your dream, you're entering the spirit realm. It could be 2, moving in the spirit. It could mean 3, rapture. There we go. Number 4 could be looking for spiritual growth. It could be 5, looking to get to God. Number 6, praise. 7, gateway to heaven. 8, heaven's kingdom coming to earth, particularly like an escalator with people coming and going up and down. So I would say that's kind of like, what's it called? Jacob's ladder. I'll cite that scripture, which is something where he sees angels going up and down, sort of in front. So I think that's what it's angling at there. It's probably the scripture here that's underlined, to be fair, but I'll look it up first before quoting it. Could it mean, let's say, unaliving yourself if you're falling in a lift? Yeah, so a bit like jumping off of a building, I guess. Number 10, on the way to hell if the lift is going to the basement. Could it mean the church, number 11, as a vehicle to bring heaven to earth? Or could it be number 12, for different floor levels, see entries under individual numbers? Yeah, basically saying if I saw floor 4 and I'm hitting floor 4, well, what does number 4 mean? You know, that kind of thing. I didn't see any of that. I just hit a button. You know, I wasn't aware of the number. But interesting there, as I said, that rapture was on there, and that was actually my thought even before I looked at this book. Okay, so I think that's the only one I'm going to quote from here, from this book. I did go through loads of other stuff, just so you know. I was trying to completely deconstruct this dream, which was interesting. I went through, what does a gunman mean? What does an assassin mean? What does a contract killer mean? What does a gun mean? What does a sniper mean? What does a rifle mean? What does a bow mean? What does shooting mean? They all mean very similar stuff, which are all related to, well, loads of different things, to be honest. Too varied, really, to use, if you see what I mean. I mean, you can get this, I find, with a dream book. If you go too far, if you're looking for 1 or 2 details, it's fine. But when you've got something like an assassin or something like that, and they use a sniper rifle and this and that, then you're like, well, okay, but these all mean different things. What do I use? So I've kind of just abandoned that, to be honest. And I've gone with what my overall thoughts were on this without looking at the dream book, because I can find that sometimes it really pulls you in a certain direction, which sometimes can be really helpful, because it pulls you in a direction that you hadn't even thought of, and then it all starts clicking, all these little bits start coming together. But I found with this one, it had the opposite effect. So it was, instead of pulling things together, it was actually blowing them out. So I was like, okay, no, I had it a bit more together before looking, so I'm gonna go with that. Okay. So other aspects were that there was two of us at the lift, if you remember, the elevator. There was me and the woman. Okay. So I thought to myself, what does a woman mean in the Bible? Well, that the woman means Israel. You know, they're referred to as the woman, and that is mentioned in future Exodus. How many times? I pretty much get that video in for season 2 anyway. It feels like every 3 dreams I record, I end up citing future Exodus. That's mentioned in there, the woman. Okay, so it did make me think of that. Was she meant to represent Israel, and I was meant to, or the Jews, let's say, and I was meant to represent the Gentiles? So let's say that both of us are looking to go up. So both of us are looking to leave this place. You know, Jews and Gentiles. And I'm going to cite quite a few scriptures about this, because if you remember, she didn't want to get in the lift with me. She didn't want to sort of be close to me in that way. I was perfectly fine with going in the lift with her. Yeah. So you get elements of that. I won't get into Judaism and Christianity, because that will get messy. But let's just say that Christians very much welcome Jews, but it's not necessarily quite reciprocated in that same way, just because of where we see things as far as Christianity versus Judaism. Yeah, It does. They don't kind of go well together, let's say. And it did kind of remind me of that with she wouldn't get in the lift with me to come with me up in the lift. She wanted to wait. And again, that also makes me think to a certain extent about, Israel as a nation are saved, but it's only when they call on Jesus. So they realize their mistake and that Jesus was always the Messiah. And they call on him, and then he returns. He's waiting for that. He's literally waiting for it. When they go through all of these trials and stuff like that, and it's, when are you going to realize? Okay, and they do realize. And Jesus actually prophesied that as well. So he said, I'm not going to return until you say this, and again, I'm going to get the scriptures because I haven't got them to hand, but I will put that together for you and stick that in the description. There'll be stacks of stuff in the description, believe me, loads. So we're about Jews and Gentiles actually being one now in Christ Jesus. Okay, so we are one. We're not separate in that way that it was in the lift. So I wanted to go into that. So I'm not going to go into the actual scriptures. I'm just going to cite them here, okay? Because it would take ages, and I'm trying to cut this down as much as I can, but to cover off the fullness of this dream because it's pretty vast. Okay, so this one, I would have said we've got Ephesians 2 verses 14 to 16. You've got Galatians 3 verses 28. You've got Colossians 3 verses 11. You've got Romans 10 verses 12 and 1 Corinthians 12 verses 13. So basically all Paul, I think that is, isn't it? All Paul. And he's obviously a Jew and he's going to the Gentiles. So that makes a lot of sense as to how he's going to be covering that off, saying, but we're now one. We are now one. There is no separation between Jews and Gentiles anymore. Okay, we're part of one new covenant rather than the old covenant. Anyway, now this is where it gets really interesting. Okay, so the guy who was in the lift with me, yeah, so he slips in just as I'm going up. He slips in. Okay, so this guy, remember, was a white guy with blonde hair. Okay, now could he? Oh, and another aspect. Do you remember I said he had a sniper rifle, but he also, I said, he has a bow. Okay, now when you put bow and white together, you get the white horse of Revelation. Okay, could he represent the white horseman of Revelation? Because the white horseman comes bringing peace, which is why people associate peace with white. As far as like white flags and stuff like that. I don't know if that's where it comes from at all, actually. And you've got a white dove, haven't you? Does it say white dove or does it just say dove? For Noah, and obviously the peace symbol we use is the dove, isn't it? And the olive branch that the dove brings back. These are the kind of things that we use, not just Christians, but worldwide, don't we, as symbols. But the bow. So he brings a bow. Okay, and I think there's some people that said. I remember hearing some people were sort of saying, does it mean a rainbow? But actually, not at all, because the words are completely different for an archery bow and a rainbow. Okay, because it just says bow, but that word is specifically in the Greek toxon, so toxon. Again, it will have some sort of characters to it, but that's just how it's sort of spoken. It's toxon. And it literally means an archery bow. So he comes basically bringing peace, but through conquest. And I'm going to read Revelation 6:2 to you, because I personally think that's what this is talking about. This is talking about the white horse of Revelation. And there'll be another reason I'll mention why as well in a moment. Okay, so I'm going to go through this. I'm going to go Revelation 6:2. So it's very, very brief here. So this is where I've actually gone through this before as well, by the way, but 6:2 is talking about where the seals are now being opened. So we've, at this point, this is the start, really, the judgments, okay? So where are we? Verses 2, I looked, and there before me was a white horse. Its rider held a bow, and he was given a crown, and he rode out as a conqueror bent on conquest. Okay, so a little short passage, but I think that's what it's talking about. Now, if you've seen many of my videos now, I've had the black horse as well, and this is the white horse. I'm pretty convinced this is the white horse. I've yet to have the pale horse or the green horse, it's mentioned, or the red horse. I've not seen yet, but I think this is the white horse. I think that's what it's talking about. Okay, the black horse one's really interesting as well. Really, really fascinating. You'll find that in Financial Meltdown. So there's two of those. There's one in season 1, and then there's a further revelation in season 2, which is called, again, it's called Financial Meltdown, and it's like further revelation or something like that. You'll see that in season 2, though, that one. Okay, so that's what I think it's talking about. So peace through conquest. Okay, I go on to some other stuff, but actually what I want to do here is I want to bring it back. I want to bring it back a bit here because I didn't actually write this down, but there's just more thoughts that I had which tied it to this, because the white horse of Revelation, or that first horse, I believe, hopefully I'm not wrong, I believe that people tie that individual to being the Antichrist. I think that's right. But I'm going to go through some passages here of Daniel which talks about the Antichrist, okay? And that is Daniel 11 verses 37. Now I'm going to do it in 2 different readings. I'm going to do it in the King James Version, and I'm going to do it in the NIV, so the New International Version. They read very differently, and I have described this in another video, but I'm going to do it again and describe it again, okay? So I'm going to do, first off, I'm going to do the which way round shall I do it? I'm going to do it as the NIV first. So NIV is rather than 1600s sort of language, it's modern day language. So it's easier to understand. Certain words are replaced, so it doesn't read similar to Shakespeare, let's say. It reads in a way that is just a modern English, okay? But the modern version is actually more accurate than the King James Version from what I've been told, okay? Because of a specific part that I'm going to describe to you. Okay, so the NIV. So this is talking about, as I said, the Antichrist as far as I know it. But again, everything I say, please do look these things up. Don't think that I've got everything correct, because I may go wrong, obviously. So please do look things up, and don't just take my word for it. Look at the scriptures, look up things, understand other people's points of view, again, because my point of view might be wrong. Okay, so anyway, that said, NIV, it says, Daniel says, so again, talking of the Antichrist, I believe, he will show no regard for the gods of his ancestors or for the one desired by women, nor will he regard any god, but will exalt himself above them all. Meaning that he is basically saying here, or that this individual who will rise up is going to conquer and stuff like that, and this stuff about the 10 kings and all of this kind of stuff that comes together. He will conquer nations, and there were some that will just fold. They'll just, yeah, fine. Look, we don't want to be destroyed. We'll submit to you, basically. Okay, so that's that figure, and it says that he will not regard the gods of his ancestors, or the one desired by women. Okay. I'll unwrap that bit in a bit, but where it says, no, I'm going to mention that in the next bit. So basically, he's not religious, and he exalts himself above all gods. He thinks he's better than everybody. Okay, so he raises himself up from that kind of point of view. Now I'm going to do the King James Version, which is worded very different. Okay, so neither shall he regard the God of his fathers, nor the desire of women, nor regard any god, for he shall magnify himself above all. Okay, there's some subtle differences there. Okay, so if you look up the Greek, the Hebrew, because it's Daniel. If you look up the Hebrew, the word God, so where it says capital G-O-D, neither shall he regard the God of his fathers. that actually means technically gods, because the word is Elohim, and Elohim is as a plural word, meaning more than one. And I've mentioned this in the previous one. Plural in the Hebrew, I believe, means three. So when it talks about neither shall he regard the God of his fathers, it, I think, is referring to the Hebrew God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Yeah, I think it is. It's also been capitalized as well. So normally that is, when it's capitalized, means Hebrew God. If it's seen as another God, let's say, in inverted commas, it will be a lowercase g, generally, you'll find. And that means it's not talking about the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, true God. It's talking about like the gods of, I don't know, Moloch or somebody like that, who's some sort of demonic god, basically. Could be literally a demon. Could literally be a demon. Sometimes can be just figments of people's imagination. Okay, but that's what that works. So that doesn't read quite the same, does it, as the NIV, which says he will have no regard for the gods of his ancestors. Whereas this is capitalized G, Elohim, gods, plural, of his fathers, then takes on a different, because the gods of his fathers would identify potentially this person as being somebody who actually his fathers would have prayed to, Yahweh, again, the God of the Bible, potentially. Okay, again, look these things up, see if I'm wrong. It also says here in the King James Version, nor will he have, the desire of women. And a lot of people go, is he going to be gay? Is that what it means by that? That he doesn't desire women? Well, does that mean he's gay? And that's where I wanted to go with that little bizarre little aspect where I opened the door and then I saw two guys and they were intimate together. And I thought, why? Why is that in there? I think it may well be another pointer to this scripture. Possibly. Because even though I've explored that and I've seen other videos on this and read stuff about that particular aspect, is that the NIV seems to actually word that better, in that it says that they won't have any regard for the gods of his ancestors or the one desired by women. Now that was something at the time apparently was a saying for the one desired by women was that all women wanted, let's say the Jewish women wanted to be honored to give birth to the Messiah. And so that's what that's pointing to. The one desired by women relates to the Messiah. So if he shows no regard for the gods of his ancestors or for the one desired by women, it's highlighting the Messiah. So that this person has no regard to Christianity, obviously, whatsoever, which makes complete sense. And I mentioned that in the previous video. Why would somebody who's an antichrist and represent something completely opposite, really, or replacing, let's say, a Messiah figure? Well, why would he acknowledge that? So it's just kind of identifying that sort of person. So that's what I wanted to do. Obviously, he magnifies himself, so he doesn't have any regard for any gods at all. He magnifies himself above all. That said, it does say he honors. Sorry, I've just thought of that. That he does honor the God of fortresses. Daniel, there we go, we're nearly there. Daniel 11, I think that's what it says. Sorry, 11:37. Where are we? So many pictures here. I'm trying to find where we get to 37. There you go, he exalts himself. So if I just carry on, where are we? 36, 37. Yeah, there we go. So this is an NIV. So he will show no regard for the gods of his ancestors or for the one desired by women, nor will he regard any god, but will exalt himself above all. Instead of them, he will honor a God of fortresses A God unknown to his ancestors, he will honor with gold and silver, with precious stones, and with costly gifts. He will attack the mightiest fortresses with the help of a foreign god, and with the help of a foreign god, and will greatly honor those who acknowledge him. I've said this before. I personally think what that's talking about is just my personal opinion, that that's pointing to the religion that has a moon, and that is their god is the god of fortresses, and that this person is going to align themselves with that religion for it to be used, because we do see a lot of stuff talking about people being beheaded. That's the way that they dispatch of their enemies. Okay. I will find some of these scriptures for you as well. Where did I go to? I went up to 39, didn't I? Sorry, up to 39. Couldn't see there. Yeah, so that's what I think. That's what I think it's talking about. I think it's identifying, the Antichrist, the white horse. Yeah, the bow case for me was what that was all talking about. Peace through conquest. There we go. I've written this completely separate. Feels like the way in which another second-placed religion, let's say, seeks to push forward their religion through conquest. That's literally how that religion was created. Not through people believing, but believe or conform or die. As simple as that. And that's how it happened. That's how that religion spread. Not through people genuinely believing, but through conquest and a threat of death, which is the complete opposite of Christianity. Yeah, in that and there's also aspects of that religion where they say it's such a peaceful religion. It's only peaceful if you are that same religion, you are a country of that same religion. That said, they're always warring against each other all the time over differences. And I wonder whether this character is going to unite them to a certain extent. Maybe, because I think that there is the potential. Yeah, that there is the potential that the Antichrist may well come from that area. Maybe. There are certain elements of it that don't quite fit, though, as far as the character that some people talk about, who he could be. But he does honors the god of fortresses. Yeah. Anyway, hopefully that brought you to some interesting scriptures and some interesting thoughts for you to explore. I did think it very much aligned with that previous dream, Inside Job, which talks about what I think is potentially, I put there a Trump assassination because of the aspects there. Potentially, was that what this was talking about? A relatively small group of people coming together, but they were, I've just remembered a love of it. Coming together and they're looking to assassinate somebody who's speaking on a podium kind of scenario, like a big public speaker, let's say, possibly. Maybe. And then I thought of another aspect. So if you remember, I was talking about the seating plan. Yeah. So we've got the white. Let's say the white guys. Yeah. Let's say that one with the bow represents the white horse of Revelation. Well, what's after the white horse? It's the red horse. What's after the red horse? Well, it's the black horse, and then after that is the green or the pale horse. Well, when I thought about the seating plan, you would have the speaker, then you'd have those people sitting on the front row, which was now the red seats. Then I said blue, and then I said green. So I may have got the colour wrong as to that second colour, possibly. But it just made me, again, it triggered that little thought in my mind of to that's the order of the horses: white, red, black, green. And I've seen the order as white, red, blue, green, which made me think, is identifying the horses again? Again, it's like an extra confirmation in the dream for me, possibly. The red horse, of course, is war. So you've got the person who brings peace, but it's really a bit of a false peace, because it then gets broken, and then you have war, where people are literally butchering each other. Is the word in the Greek, is butchering people, so brutal sort of killing of each other, and stacks of people die. And then it moves on to, obviously as a consequence of war, you have, of course, the black horse, which is hyperinflation, poverty, famine. They're all kind of things that happen as a result of, if no one's working and everyone's warring against each other, well, no fields are being planted, nothing's really working, no money's being made and stuff like that. It's all everything's all funneled towards the war effort in just surviving, and so it causes all these problems. I mean, obviously we've seen this in wars, haven't we? And I cited before, the hyperinflation of post First World War in Germany, where they literally came in with wheelbarrows full of stacked high with cash to go and do their shopping, because of the what the actual currency was worth had just fallen through the floor. And again, that happens in that financial meltdown dream. You see all of that. So I've yet to see the red horse, and I've yet to see the green horse, but I feel now that I've had the black and the white, it feels like. So yeah, I think that is all I wanted to cover off, unless there's anything else. Yeah, just a bit that I mentioned. I can't remember what video that was in. I mentioned about Roxy Music, which is a band, and I looked up Roxy, and Roxy was the name of a cinema, an old style cinema as well. I put, again, another sort of connection. I'm not sure if that was in that. It was in the Inside Job one, wasn't it? Of course it was. I did that one day before yesterday, I think. Yeah, I think it was the day before yesterday. Yeah, it's kind of gone out of my mind. But in that one, yeah, they were sort of like infiltrating the police and stuff like that. So very similar. Yeah, so there's a lot of similar aspects to that Inside Job, which is why I put them side by side. So, yeah, hopefully you found that interesting. There's a lot of places to take that as far as where your mind goes with it, because it's a pretty packed dream. I mean, it took me to the 40-minute mark, didn't it, just to actually go through the dream itself. So it's pretty full, but I think that's what it's pointing to. If you have any more thoughts across that, please do just put them in the comments, and I will obviously look into them. We can explore those thoughts together. I don't write off anybody else's opinion. That's certainly where it's taken me, is to this place. Okay. Yeah. Okay. We'll leave that where it is. Again, look at the description. I'm going to try and break down a lot of these bits, try and find the scriptures for you, put them all in the description. Ones I've just said in passing, you'll see me occasionally. I'm writing down when it says that, I'll just quickly write a note, and then I'll put the scripture in there, because I can't just, bring these scriptures up on command. My brain doesn't work like that. I don't have that extensive a knowledge about the Bible to the point where I can say, oh yeah, that's John 3:16. I mean, obviously I do know that one, but that's what I mean, is I can't just call up scriptures like that. So I just write them down, and then I'll put them there, and then I won't fumble, will I, there, because you'll find them. Okay. There'll be links to videos as well. So I've been putting in links, so you can literally just copy and paste the link into into YouTube, and then just get taken. Oh, actually, no, saying that, I'll give you a link on it anyway in the description. Yeah, so you should be able to be taken to some of these other videos and check them out as well. So many of my dreams are interconnected, and as I've gone through season 2, I've noticed how much they've been connected with season 1 as well. So yeah, really interesting. Hopefully you found it interesting. I will see where we go next. Okay.